Buckle up, this is going to be a good one. This is the Salmonid Stalker, a streamlined little intruder pattern. Here's how you tie it. This is a micro intruder patterns tied on a straight articulated larva lace shank. Get the backside of your shank secured in the vise and grab some 140 denier thread. I'm using black, but you can change it up and mix in some fluorescent colors. You can throw in some fuchsia or hot pink to match different components of this fly. Begin your thread behind the front loop and bring thread wraps back, binding both legs of the shank as you move rearward. Trim off any excess. Then we're going to throw on a stinger hook for this intruder pattern using super line. This is 20-pound test fire line. Any super line will do. Cut about a 10-inch piece of super line from the spool and double it over itself, making sure the ends are even. Twist the loop side end to bring it together in a tight fitting form, making it easier for you to pass it through the eye of the stinger hook. For that, I'm using a size 6 octopus hook. I stole these from my walleye tackle box. This is a Daiichi 2557. Pass your twisted loop of super line through the eye of your octopus hook. Open up the loop and pass the entire hook through before pulling on the tag end of super line to tighten the loop onto the eye of the octopus hook. I invert my shank in my rotary vise before tying the super line in on top of the shank. Capture it down with a few wraps and slide the line in or out to find the right length that you want for your fly before using thread wraps to capture down the rest of the super line all along the hook shank. Once you get to the front side of your shank, pass the tag end of super line through the loop and bring thread wraps rearward again, covering the excess tag of super line. Bring your thread back to the original tie-in point on the back side of the shank. That's where we're going to make a dubbing loop to add our first artificial material. Hot pink Salmo Supreme doesn't dub so easily, so the loop is going to give us a more robust, prominent ball on the back side of this shank. Add a little bit of wax to your dubbing loop and slide in some Salmo Supreme dubbing, and then spread it out amongst the loop before using your favorite dubbing spinner to spin a tight noodle. Wrap your dubbing noodle the best way that you know how. I'm using plunger style hackle pliers to hold on to the thread and bring the dubbing loop around into a small ball on the back side of that shank. Secure the tag end down with your thread and trim any excess that you might have. With first on, last off mentality, I'm adding a black woolly bugger feather tied in soft hackle style. You want to preen those feather fibers rearward before trimming the tip of the feather to make a tie-in point. Bring that small triangle tip to the back side of the fly, capture it down at the original tie-in point just behind that pink ball, and let that feather hang off the back of the shank. Next, I'm going to dub a body of Fuschia Firestar. You're just going to use as much as you need to cover up the middle part of the articulated shank. It took me a few dubbing noodles to do it due to limited space, but you should have no problem getting it done with one noodle. Bring the Firestar Fuschia body all the way to the front side of the shank, and then begin to wrap your hackle feather through the fuchsia body. Make open spiral wraps with this hackle feather, using your fingers to preen the individual fibers rearward as you wrap it forward. Make an extra wrap or two when you get to the front and capture it with your thread, and trim off any excess stem from your bugger hackle. I like to add a stopper to my hook before I start adding materials that I might stroke with my finger so I don't inadvertently stab myself. This is just a cut out piece of foam for a beetle body. Only a necessary step if you happen to hook yourself a lot, which I do. We're going to make another dubbing loop on the front side of this shank Just like before, make a dubbing loop and add some wax before evenly distributing a patch of hot pink Salmo Supreme dubbing. Give that dubbing loop a nice twirl. Intertwine all that Salmo Supreme dubbing, and then use your favorite method to wrap that dubbing loop around the shank. Capture the tag end of thread. Hopefully you gave yourself a little more leeway than I did, and then trim off any excess dubbing loop hanging off the front side. Finally, we're going to add a little bit of flash halo to this intruder pattern. That's going to come in the form of angel hair. First, I'm going to add some steelhead ice to the bottom side of the fly. Pull out a small clump from the pack and tie it in at its midpoint on the front side of the fly. Fold the remaining materials towards the back and attach those on the other side of the bottom part of the fly. On top, I'm going to add some black saltwater angel hair. Just like before, I'm going to pull a small stack of angel hair from the pack. I'm going to begin by capturing the middle point of that angel hair on one side of the top of the shank, and then fold the rest of the materials back and make a few wraps over the top of that as well to make sure there are 2 even segments hanging off the top side of the shank. Once you've secured both sections of angel hair, bring all of them together on the back side near the hook and trim the tail to be just longer than the stinger hook on the back. Add a whip finish or some half hitches on the front side, trim your thread, and then finally cover the head of this fly with UV resin or Sally Hansen's hard as nails to ensure its long-term durability. That's it. That's the finished Salmonid Stalker. Hopefully this will give you something new to swing in front of salmonid species, and I hope it helps you out on the waters that you appreciate most. Here are all the materials you'll need to tie a Salmonid Stalker. Go down to your local fly shop and ask for Larva Lace by name. If they don't have Larva Lace products, make sure you send them to hagensfish.com or have them get in touch with Lorie at the shop to get them the best, high-quality synthetic fly tying materials on the market. Larva Lace is a product of hagensfish.com in Mitchell, South Dakota. Follow all of our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel to get monthly tying tutorial updates showing you how to tie flies that just catch fish. Thanks for tying with Larva Lace. Here's to tight lines and well-tied flies.